This is a breaking news alert, the kind that freezes the blood and sends markets into a tailspin. We are coming to you live with confirmed reports of a devastating coordinated attack on Qatar's primary LNG export facility at Ras Laffan. This isn't just an attack on Qatar. Let's be crystal clear. This is an attack on every nation, every economy, and every household that depends on stable energy. The global shockwave is instantaneous and brutal. European natural gas futures, they've just experienced a vertical spike. A financial panic attack captured in real time on trading screens from London to Tokyo. Benchmark prices are up over 60% in a matter of minutes. Asian LNG spot prices have effectively vanished into a bid-only frenzy. The term market volatility doesn't even begin to cover it. This is a system-wide cardiac arrest. The dependency the world built on Qatari gas, a cornerstone of the post-Ukraine war energy realignment, has just been revealed as the ultimate vulnerability. One well-placed strike and the foundation cracks. So the $5 billion question, or more accurately, the $1 trillion question, hangs in the smoky air. Who did this? Who has the capability, the sheer nerve, to pull off an operation of this sophistication and consequence? A statement from Iranian state media, delivered with that trademark chilling calm, categorically rejects any baseless allegations and calls for a sober investigation, which, in diplomatic slang, translates to good luck proving anything. Meanwhile, proxies across the region are ominously quiet, a silence more deafening than any boastful claim of responsibility. Security analysts on our panels are dissecting the forensic details, the precision of the strikes, the apparent bypassing of multi-billion-dollar defense systems, the timing designed for maximum market chaos. This was professional, this was state-sponsored, this was a message. But from whom? And what is that message? Is it a brutal negotiation tactic in some shadow war we aren't privy to? A declaration of a new, more dangerous phase of hybrid conflict where economic warfare takes precedence over troop movements? Or is it something even more terrifyingly straightforward? The White House is expected to address the nation within the hour. NATO is convening an emergency session. The UN Security Council is drafting a statement that everyone already knows will be watered down and useless. The global response, so far, is a symphony of panic and paralysis. As the sun rises over the smoldering ruins in Qatar, it illuminates a world abruptly thrust into a new and volatile reality. The geopolitical chessboard hasn't just been shaken, it's been kicked over. The first satellite images are in, and the scale of the devastation at Ras Laffan industrial city is not just a crisis, it's a calculated obliteration of global energy infrastructure. This is the POV from orbit, and it tells a story of surgical, terrifying precision. We're looking at one of the largest LNG export facilities on the planet, a sprawling complex of pipelines, storage tanks, and liquefaction trains that normally hums with the cold, pressurized lifeblood of the modern world. Now it's a blackened scar on the coastline, with multiple plumes of inky smoke spiraling into the dawn sky over the Persian Gulf. According to initial analysis from private satellite firms like Maxar and Planet Labs, the primary targets were the liquefaction trains themselves, the massive, hyper-specialized facilities that supercool natural gas into a liquid for transport. At least 3 of these multi-billion-dollar units show catastrophic damage. The imagery shows collapsed superstructures, the distinctive geometry of heat exchangers twisted into abstract metal sculptures by intense fire. Secondary explosions, likely from stored LNG or pipeline ruptures, have cratered the loading berths where Q-Max tankers, the size of aircraft carriers, normally dock. The fire is not contained. It's feeding on the very product it was built to handle, creating a hellish feedback loop that firefighters on the ground, according to sources within Qatar Energy, are calling unapproachable. The immediate humanitarian crisis is local and brutal. Ras Laffan is a company town, a high-security enclave housing thousands of workers, engineers, technicians, contractors from across the globe. Early unconfirmed reports from on-the-ground sources speaking to Al Jazeera describe scenes of chaos, workers fleeing on foot through industrial corridors, the air thick with acrid smoke, and the panic of a population that believed itself insulated by wealth and security. Casualty figures are a grim guessing game. Qatari officials, in their first terse statement, confirmed a number of fatalities and injuries, but provided no specifics, citing the ongoing emergency response. The true toll, buried under operational secrecy and the sheer danger of the site, may not be known for days. But let's talk about the environmental crisis unfolding in real time. This isn't just a fire, it's a continuous massive release of methane, a greenhouse gas over 80 times more potent than CO2 in the short term, directly into the atmosphere. Scientists at the Environmental Defense Fund, who have been tracking methane leaks via satellite, are sounding alarms about a potential super emitter event of historic proportions. Then there's the marine threat. The immediate environmental catastrophe is staggering, but the shockwaves from the Ras Laffan disaster are now rippling through the global economy with terrifying speed. We are witnessing a financial freefall triggered by a single catastrophic point of failure. The numbers are brutal and unprecedented. Within hours of the first explosion, benchmark prices for liquefied natural gas in Asia and Europe skyrocketed. We're talking about a 42% spike in a single trading session. Let that sink in. 42%. That's not market volatility, that's a cardiac arrest for the global energy system. This is the moment the world's worst-case scenario became a spreadsheet. Europe, still nursing the deep bruises from its last gas crisis with Russia, just got sucker punched. Their entire pivot strategy, leaning heavily on Qatar LNG to replace Russian pipelines, is now lying in smoldering ruins. Analysts at Bloomberg are calling it a perfect storm of dependency. Europe's gas storage levels, which they've been desperately trying to rebuild, are now a countdown clock. Every minister, every CEO is staring at that clock, watching the seconds tick down toward winter with pure dread. The scramble is on, and it's ugly. It's a geopolitical feeding frenzy. Traders are frantically redirecting LNG tankers already at sea, bidding up prices in a brutal auction where the highest bidder gets to keep their lights on. We're seeing reports of U.S. cargoes originally destined for Asia being diverted mid-Pacific toward European ports willing to pay a king's ransom. It's pure chaos. The term energy security has been stripped down to its most primal form, a vicious, every nation for itself fight for the last molecule of gas. And let's talk about the domino effect. Natural gas isn't just for heating homes. It's the critical feedstock for fertilizer, which means global food production just got more expensive. It fuels power plants that make the electricity for factories. This supply shock is an inflation rocket pointed directly at every consumer's wallet. Central banks, which were maybe possibly considering cutting interest rates, are now in full panic mode. The dream of taming inflation is evaporating faster than a puddle in the desert. The alternative energy pivot, it's getting the ultimate stress test, and the early results are not pretty. Germany is suddenly talking about, and I can't believe I'm saying this, temporarily firing up idled coal plants. It's the ultimate climate policy walk of shame. France is pushing its nuclear fleet to maximum output, but that's a finite band-aid. Solar and wind can't scale up overnight to fill a gap this massive. The brutal truth is, when the chips are down, the world still runs on fossil fuels, and the main artery just got severed. But the economic shockwave is only the first tremor. The real earthquake is geopolitical. Who did this? That's the multi-trillion-dollar question hanging over every world capital right now. We're diving into the murky world of state and non-state actors, where motive, capability, and opportunity create a Venn diagram of pure chaos. Let's start with the obvious POV, state-sponsored sabotage. The list of nations with both the technical know-how and a strategic interest in seeing European energy security implode is distressingly short. According to a classified assessment from a NATO intelligence agency shared with key allies, the operation required precision, deep-sea expertise, and sophisticated intelligence on pipeline security protocols. This wasn't some backwater militia with scuba gear and a hacksaw. All eyes inevitably turn east. Russia has the capability, the historical precedent, and frankly, a massive motive. Nord Stream 2 was their geopolitical weapon, turned off by European sanctions. Blowing up its twin, Nord Stream 1, sends a brutal message. If we can't profit from it, nobody can. It's the ultimate scorched earth move. A senior analyst from the Center for Strategic and International Studies told me, off the record, that this fits a pattern of coercive energy diplomacy pushed to its absolute violent extreme. It's a gaslighting operation on a continental scale, designed to make Europe feel perpetually insecure and dependent on whatever trickle of gas Moscow decides to allow. But it's not that simple, because creating this level of chaos also benefits other players. Look at the United States. For years, American administrations have lobbied Europe to ditch Russian gas and buy American LNG. Now, with the pipelines physically gone, that alternative becomes not just a policy preference, but a desperate necessity. The profits for U.S. energy companies are staggering. Does that mean Washington did it? The official line is an emphatic no, but in the world of realpolitik, the outcome is awfully convenient. It's the kind of conspiracy theory flooding Telegram channels, but even some European parliamentarians are whispering about it, asking for clarification from their transatlantic ally. Then there are the non-state actors. A well-funded terrorist group could see this as the ultimate symbolic strike against the industrial West, or consider the private military company angle. Hired guns with naval special forces backgrounds, contracted by a state that wants plausible deniability. The fog of war isn't just on the battlefield anymore, it's at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Regionally, tensions are now at a boiling point. The Baltic states are on maximum alert, fearing they could be next. The official line is an emphatic no, but in the world of realpolitik, the outcome is awfully convenient. It's the kind of conspiracy theory flooding Telegram channels, but even some European parliamentarians are whispering about it, asking for clarification from their transatlantic ally. Then there are the non-state actors. A well-funded terrorist group could see this as the ultimate symbolic strike against the industrial West, or consider the private military company angle, hired guns with naval special forces backgrounds, contracted by a state that wants plausible deniability. The fog of war isn't just on the battlefield anymore, it's at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Regionally, tensions are now at a boiling point. The Baltic states are on maximum alert, fearing they could be next. But to understand what we're really dealing with, you have to get into the how, the method, because the weapon tells you everything about the wielder. That's where our focus shifts now, to a secure video conference that's happening right now, off the public record. Think of it as the war room after the explosion, where the real talk happens. This is the expert panel, the brains brought in to reverse engineer the nightmare. First up, you have Dr. Anya Petrova, a former energy infrastructure analyst for a major European consortium. Her POV is all about the physics of failure. She's pointing to the seismic data, the acoustic signatures picked up by hydrophones. She says the destruction pattern doesn't match a single massive explosion from a torpedo or a mine. It's too distributed. She's using phrases like coordinated implosion events and structural failure initiation at multiple critical nodes. In plain English, it sounds like the pipeline was made to unravel from the inside out in several places at once. Her theory leans hard into a cyber-physical strike. Imagine someone hacking the pipeline's own pressure management and safety systems, commanding them to create catastrophic overpressures while simultaneously disabling emergency shutoffs. It's a digital ghost turning the machinery against itself. She calls it the ultimate gaslighting of a machine. The pipeline was Karen-ed to death by its own software. Then you have Colonel Marcus Berg, retired from Swedish naval intelligence. He's got the posture of a man who's seen the blueprints for every bad day imaginable. He scoffs at the cyber-only theory. Too clean, he says, too reliant on perfect access and zero fail-safes. His money is on a hybrid attack, a 1-2 punch, a sophisticated cyber intrusion to blind the monitoring systems, to make the control screens show a peaceful, green, all-good status while hell is brewing. Then, while the system is blind and deaf, a physical delivery system. The desert sun over Doha isn't just hot. It's a relentless bleaching spotlight on a geopolitical crime scene. This is where the digital ghost of the pipeline attack materializes into human consequence. Welcome to Ground Zero of the energy apocalypse. I'm on the ground in Qatar for a POV you won't get from a secure briefing room. The official response has been a masterclass in controlled fury. At the Amiri Diwan, the atmosphere is thicker than the humid Gulf air. The press conference wasn't an information session, it was a declaration of war by other means. The Minister of State for Energy stood flanked by security officials, his voice a low, steady drumbeat of outrage. He confirmed the worst. The attack on the North Field was, in his words, a calibrated act of economic terrorism, designed not just to disrupt, but to demonstrate a terrifying capability to cripple the world's single most important gas hub. He cited preliminary forensic data showing the malware, dubbed Sandstorm by their cyber teams, didn't just open valves, it systematically hunted and destroyed backup control servers housed in separate, supposedly isolated bunkers. The redundancy was Karen-ed too. But the real story is outside the marble halls. The human cost is written in the strained faces of the workers' compound doctors and the soot on the uniforms of local firefighters. I spoke with Dr. Amal Hassan at a triage center set up for the displaced. Her eyes are hollow from a 48-hour shift. The initial blast wave, she said, was only the opening act. The real trauma came from the secondary fires and the mass panic evacuation in the dead of night. We're talking about sprained ankles from falls, respiratory distress from inhaled fumes, and a quiet growing wave of psychological shock. These aren't faceless workers. They're Nepalese technicians, Indian engineers, Filipino safety officers, the invisible backbone of Qatar's wealth. One man, his hands bandaged, told me through a translator he was a perimeter guard. He saw the control building's windows flash from green system lights to a solid, catastrophic red, a full minute before the first alarm sounded. The system knew it was dying before the people did. The national security response is a visible, intimidating presence. Checkpoints manned by stern-faced Interior Ministry forces ring the affected sector of the industrial city. Airspace is restricted, with Qatari Emiri Air Force jets carving silent arcs in the sky above. According to a source within the Qatar Armed Forces, the focus has split into two tracks: a digital manhunt for the origin of the Sandstorm Code and a physical, boots-on-the-ground search for evidence of that hybrid attack Colonel Berg theorized about. The digital manhunt just got a name and a face, or at least that's what they want us to believe. This is the breaking development. A shadowy collective, operating from the encrypted depths of a dark web forum, has just claimed responsibility for the Ras Laffan cyber physical attack. They call themselves Prometheus Unbound. And they didn't just take credit, they dropped what they're calling a proof of concept data packet, a digital manifesto wrapped in what appears to be fragments of the very code that brought the world's largest gas facility to its knees. The post went live at 03:47 GMT. The user, a newly created handle, posted a link to a cryptographically locked file and a single chilling message: "The fire is stolen. The chains are broken. The system saw the red dawn and knew its name. We are Prometheus Unbound. The sandstorm was our whisper. The fire is our proof." The file, once decrypted using a key shared in the post's metadata, contained two things. First, a 2,000-word political manifesto. Second, 3 seemingly authentic log files from the Ras Laffan industrial control system, timestamped to the exact minute of the initial cascade failure. Let's break down the manifesto. This isn't your typical rambling extremist text. The tone is academic, almost philosophical, laced with references to Greek tragedy, post-colonial theory, and climate science. The core argument: that the globalized fossil fuel economy is a planetary-scale system of oppression, a digital and physical chain that binds humanity to a doomed trajectory. They claim Ras Laffan was not an act of terrorism, but a controlled demonstration, a surgical strike to prove the vulnerability of the carbon-fed gods. Their demands are vague, yet monumental: an immediate, internationally audited 50% reduction in LNG extraction and transport, and the establishment of a global climate tribunal with powers to override national sovereignty on energy projects. They gave a deadline, 90 days, or the Post warns the next demonstration will not be controlled. The fire will seek its own path. Now, for the purported evidence, the log files. Initial analysis by a source within a NATO-affiliated cyber unit who spoke on condition of anonymity because they are not authorized to discuss an ongoing investigation confirms the log's format and structure are a perfect match for the Siemens S7 PLC systems used at Ras Laffan. One log shows a command sequence allegedly initiated by the attackers that ordered a specific series of pressure valves to close while simultaneously spoofing all clear sensor readings to the operators. That's the textbook definition of the hybrid attack Colonel Berg hypothesized: a digital command creating a physical time bomb. The digital smoking gun from the so-called Prometheus group sent shockwaves far beyond the Persian Gulf. It landed on the desks of diplomats and intelligence chiefs from New York to Beijing like a live grenade with the pin already pulled. The international reaction wasn't just swift. It was a cacophony of panic, posturing, and pure geopolitical gaslighting, threatening to turn a targeted sabotage into a global crisis. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, an emergency session of the Security Council was gavelled into order less than 12 hours after the data dump. The chamber, usually a theater of scripted diplomatic niceties, crackled with a raw, unvarnished tension. The U.S. ambassador, a career diplomat known for her steely composure, laid out the American POV with chilling clarity. She cited the forensic analysis of the leaked logs, calling them a blueprint for industrial murder, and directly accused Iran of harboring and enabling the Prometheus group. Her demand was unambiguous: a full, unconditional condemnation and immediate international sanctions. The vibe was pure, unadulterated find out after years of Tehran's alleged fuck-around. But the Russian ambassador, a man with a permanent smirk that could curdle milk, was ready with the counter-narrative. He dismissed the logs as an amateurish fabrication, a false flag operation of breathtaking cynicism designed to provoke a war. He pointed the finger squarely at the United States and Israel, suggesting they had everything to gain from destabilizing a major LNG competitor and painting a rival as a rogue state. It was a masterclass in whataboutism, a geopolitical Karen flipping the script and demanding to see the manager of global opinion. The Chinese response was more measured, but no less consequential. Their delegate expressed profound concern about the escalation and called for restraint and dialogue, but notably refused to endorse any statement condemning Iran. Behind the scenes, according to a Western diplomatic source who spoke on condition of anonymity, Beijing was furiously lobbying other Security Council members to block any resolution, arguing that acting without irrefutable on-the-ground verification was reckless. Their calculus was cold and commercial. Qatar is a critical energy partner, but a confrontation that disrupts Gulf shipping lanes hurts China more. They were playing for time, trying to freeze the situation before it spiraled. The divergence wasn't confined to the UN chamber. In European capitals, a stark split emerged. The United Kingdom and France aligned closely with the US, with British intelligence reportedly briefing allies that the code signatures in the logs matched previous Iranian cyber activity targeting Saudi Aramco. But Germany and Italy, heavily dependent on Qatari gas, urged caution. The German foreign minister was quoted in leaked cables saying, "We cannot afford another energy shock. Our industries will shut down." The old transatlantic alliance, the bedrock of the post-war order, was cracking under the weight of its own dependencies. This wasn't just a policy disagreement. It was a fundamental fracture in how the West perceived risk. This is the new world disorder in high definition. The attack on the Pearl of the North wasn't an anomaly. It was a symptom of a global system that has lost its center of gravity, its agreed-upon rules, and its ability to impose consequences. The era of energy security as we knew it, stable, predictable flows from a diverse set of friendly suppliers, is over. It died not with a bang, but with a series of calculated, deniable strikes. First, the pipelines in the Baltic. Now, a floating fortress in the Gulf. The message to Europe, to Asia, to any nation tethered to a single energy corridor is chillingly clear. Your economic stability is a vulnerability we can exploit at will. Look at the map. Russia has turned its gas taps into instruments of political warfare. The Gulf, once considered a relatively stable petro-monarchy bloc, is now a chessboard where regional rivals settle scores with global consequences. And the United States, while energy independent, finds its leverage diminished because its allies are not. The UN Security Council is a theater of the absurd. Permanent members veto each other not on principle, but on profit. China's obstruction wasn't about justice for Qatar. It was about insulating its own belt and road investments and keeping the LNG flowing. Russia, no stranger to energy blackmail, saw an opportunity to watch Western unity unravel and gladly poured gasoline on the diplomatic fire. The institution designed to prevent this very chaos is now its most elegant stage. So where does this leave us? Staring at a precipice. The next move, whether it's a kinetic retaliation by the US or a coalition of the willing, or a desperate EU-brokered deal that trades justice for jewels, will define the geopolitical decade. Will it be a return to blunt force power politics where might makes right and pipelines are protected by aircraft carriers, or a fragmented descent into every nation for itself mercantilism where long-term contracts are rewritten overnight and alliances are as durable as the next quarterly LNG shipment? The attack has already succeeded in its most profound objective. It has exposed the fiction of a rules-based order. It has proven that in a fragmented world, the most powerful weapon isn't always a missile. Sometimes it's a switch, a valve. On October 7th, 2 explosions severed the undersea gas pipeline and telecom cable between Finland and Estonia. The seismic signatures point to sophisticated state-grade explosives. There are no clear claims of responsibility, only a fog of denials and finger-pointing. Russia, the primary beneficiary of European energy chaos, has called it a provocation by the West. A U.S. intelligence assessment cited by multiple Allied officials speaking on background concludes with high confidence that elements of the Russian Main Intelligence Directorate, the GRU, were behind the operation. The motive? To cripple Europe's last major alternative energy route, deepen winter panic, and shatter NATO's sense of collective security. The immediate impact is quantifiable: a 15% spike in benchmark European gas prices, emergency energy rationing protocols activated in 3 Baltic states, and the deployment of NATO's mine-hunting fleet to the Baltic Sea. Who precisely gave the order? Was it a rogue Silovic faction, or a direct command from the very top? Will NATO's Article 5 be invoked? The consensus among analysts is a grim not yet. An attack on critical infrastructure is an attack, but proving the perpetrator to the legal standard required for a collective armed response is a labyrinth of shadows. The biggest uncertainty of all, what is the red line? If not this, then what? If a pipeline can be blown with impunity, what about a data hub? A power grid? The precedent is terrifyingly elastic. The call for an evidence-based response isn't just journalistic jargon, it's the only bulwark against either reckless escalation or paralyzing appeasement. Global leaders, particularly in Washington, Berlin, and London, face a test they've largely failed this century: how to punish a strategic adversary without triggering a wider war they know their publics have no stomach for. The tools exist, but they are slow, unsexy, and require a patience that the 24-hour news cycle despises. It means accelerating the decoupling from Russian energy entirely, not by next winter, but by next month, through brutal shared sacrifice. It means forensic, public-facing attribution that names names and units, dragging the perpetrators into the light of global scorn. It means asymmetric retaliation in the financial and cyber realms, freezing assets not just of oligarchs' yachts, but of the entire military-industrial networks that enable this. And it means finally treating hybrid warfare as the real warfare it is, not as a gray zone to be academically debated. The attack succeeded in exposing the fiction, as we said. The rules-based order wasn't just bent, its foundational myth was laid bare. It turns out the ultimate Karen isn't a suburban mom asking for a manager.